Sheila here with Sirius Talis Moon, and of course, after I talked about Gaza, why not talk about Israelis in Thailand? So this episode prompted me to press record. This is Are Israelis taking over Thailand's touristic hubs? And one comment in particular made me comment here, and people's like, "Oh my God, but you like this comment?" Yes, I will tell you the academic background for that. They say this is what they did with Palestine during Second World War, and they say Thailand take your country back before it's too late. Now here's the thing: the Zionist settlement up to the Second World War, um, basically, a lot of people from Europe were sending their sick people to come to Israel, and the Zionist settlers tried to fight that. So because they didn't want it to be. Now 7th of October, entire Israel went into Thailand. Now a little bit of a disclaimer: I was never in Thailand. But all I hear about when I take the train. Now I know some people that survived the human trafficking that go to Thailand and they feel a bit safer there, or I don't know what. But at the same time, everybody knows why Israelis go to Thailand for. Okay, I'm not talking about the youngsters. I'm talking about when I go take the train and a couple of men are sitting and they say what's in Thailand stays in Thailand, and in Thailand they fuck 12 years old girls there. Now, of course they're filmed. Of course they're being blackmailed. Of course, okay. Of course it doesn't stay in Thailand. And you know what? The Saturn Neptune is in Israel's seventh house of borders. Not only Israelis are in Thailand. I know the global Khazarian mafia. And Oak, it is filmed. So, um, but that's the thing. That the fact that it is filmed definitely does not justify the fact that those children are trafficked in Thailand. And where do the Israelis go? To Thailand. Okay? So what was it in the Palestinian this that drew the tourism? So once we close that chapter, what does Thailand need to do so they would not be occupied by the Khazarian mafia? Not traffic children! How about? And what do they fear? That they will be invaded? Really? Now, this is something that people are going to find beyond funny. When young people, in the army and so on, they go to Thailand, okay? When they are elderly, the employees that work in hospitality are coming from Thailand, Philippines, Vietnam, and those are usually women. People are so afraid. Don't rape children. Don't do satanic abuse. Don't traffic children. And you won't be invaded. There's a talk about the Code Orange. Don't attack women's breasts, and you won't be in the situation of the breasts. Think how you treat women, and Because you will be the, everybody is going to be the woman of. Okay, how they treat women is how they will be treated as the woman of. So they have to think very carefully how they treat these children, how they treat women. The Israelis are now afraid because you know that the bubble of Thailand is going to bubble pop. And not only the Israelis. They should stop mutilating genitalia and fertility and the breasts and the addiction to endochrome is having its implications, you know. And if Israelis want to help Thailand so much, why did they not abolish the pedophilia there? Those are the people that most need humanitarian aid. No, seriously, if they would do that, then they would have the right as colonizers. If they would abolish slavery and pedophilia and rape, then they would have the right over the land more so than the indigenous people. And we have to remember that also. But if they don't, then the very fear that that was practice was allowed in Thailand to supposedly appease rulers and extort them so that they wouldn't be invaded, now they are invaded. It's not about taking back the land from Israelis. It's about abolishing pedophilia and making sure that human rights on the land are kept. Otherwise, people lose the land. It makes sense. Think about all the rituals of babies buried alive in construction sites of real estate that's supposed to be for housing and for cities. Now, let me tell you something as an astrologer. They tend to steal from the wombs that are the least benefic to them. It's the wombs that they lose ideas, housing, maternal care. And the wombs that are not approving of their, it's a lunar nakshatra compatibility. So basically what happens is that those actions are their downfall and usually explodes to a certain bubble before the bubble pops because it's kind of letting them think they got away with that and then But it's also with the indigenous tribes. They think, oh, they're gonna be liberated, they're gonna be this. Just sacrifice these two girls that's gonna be raped and tortured by the satanic elite. Amazing. Bye bye lineage, bye bye bloodline, bye bye societies that thought that that's how you liberate people. Stalin said that there would be 100,000 dead to save millions. Now, the millions were probably of Rockefeller, but they definitely saved millions. But 20 million Russians also died in the World War. So it was not those millions. 100,000 died, but they did not save millions. Those type of millions. They saved other millions, but 20 million died. And Rockefeller wasn't invading only Russia. The entire Slavic people that look for a big leader that will save them from that fate need to begin to honor sexual sovereignty in spirit and in matter. Definitely not use witchcraft on people. That's what got them to that trouble. And by the way, I do know Slavic practitioners that what they do immediately if something happens, they would light a blue candle that is of emotional, they would look within. Okay? So there are also practitioners that they would look within and they would transmute within what needs to be transmuted. Those practitioners that do that is probably how the rest of the people still exist. Um, More to say about this topic. And again, it's the spiritual practices. Okay, the spiritual practices that allowed this are now causing invasion. And indeed, they're starting to set boundaries to no Israelis and no this, and then the smug Israeli girls that say, well, my money builds your country, with a squint eye of Illuminati, whatever. Not your money, not their country, but anyway. To grow some crops and eat them, no money needs to change hands. Okay, to grow some. And we all need to, okay, baseline, to grow some crops and cattle and eat, no money needs to change hands. Anything above that needs to include the rights of the people, because if it's done with slavery, it's unnecessary. Slavery, okay? Slavery is unnecessary. And then the population would just be death. Saturn rules slavery and it rules death. Those societies that practice slavery have mass death. that's that's And the people that grew overly smug, they have to ask themselves why, on what basis they grew overly smug. Because a person that has evidence doesn't have smugness, they have evidence. Okay? I know that during Zionist settlement in Israel, there were people coming from Europe, and the Zionist settlement tried to block them out because they were sending their sick people to recover. Okay, just like what happens now in Thailand. People recover from the PTSD from the army in Thailand. Okay? That's the beginning of the Zionist settlement. And they say, how do we not become a sick hospice? Okay, how do we become like an actual building settlement and building country? That was the psychiatrists that became bus drivers. There were psychiatrist bus drivers in Israel, and some of them, the bus drivers was those that didn't want to do the psychiatry of deciding which one is compatible for labor, then they could get in as a laborer, and which is not, to send him back to 1930s Germany. That's history of psychiatry in Israel. And also they had this segregation where with the bloodlines, and then the Arabic bloodlines considered less, and so, all the type of usual racism. So I don't come with smugness, I come with evidence. The people that have smugness, they usually lack evidence. They only have smug. And then people come to them with evidence. Then they say, but this worked, but the rich people, they funnel money here, they funnel money there. Yes, exactly. And they create all these wars, and they create all this. And they work in trees, so if one lets go, then the other two. What if two let go? Saturn Neptune is when two let go. It's in a B6 style. No, seriously. What if both Bolsheviks and capitalists let go of the pedo ring? That's the right thing to do, by the way. Then the only gravity center falls flat, poof, and collapses. People are going to talk about taxes. It's fantastic. Talk about taxes. Let's talk about Texas as well. They want to make it a 15-minute death camp country and call it independence in the name of sovereignty. So, how many people are interested in laser in Texas? Their house is not Whoopi Goldberg's in that Maui. People say neither is yours, and I'm like, yeah, but I don't come with smugness like I'm exempt from those weird timelines. Okay, it's not like I don't live in a faith that I will survive in a bunker and have no sun for like 70 years, and that will just be okay. I don't live in that bubble, is what I'm saying. But the people that come with the smugness, then the bubble's gonna pop. You know, what do they do with this traffic to people, traffic to children, and so on and so forth? They're gonna need angry people to overthrow something. Now, here is the thing. If the oil company had to consolidate wealth with the monarchy and send in children, then the monarchy should not be surprised when the Bolsheviks. That's what I'm saying. And I'm not talking about Russia. if those things happen in Russia, then that would be inclusive of Russia. But okay, but more so than Russia is the oligarchy that's now going to North Korea, thinking that they're not filmed. Is amazing. Yes. No, going to brothels in North Korea. What did you think would happen? Now, Code Orange, let's talk about that because that's been something that's been on since COVID. The Saturn Neptune is going to be on the 7th house of Israel and the 10th house of the 1800 chart of Netherlands. Which means Mercury is the 12th, Uranus, Mercury revolution, and Pluto in the 8th, could be running out of budget, and there could be revolution. From jails, from hospitals. They're already doing no-touch torture to prisoners in jail, and they're imprisoning judges. So there's probably going to be some revolution in jail and in hospitals. Now Uranus is going to go through the 11th house. That's where the houses kind of bombed. I think the houses that were bombed were more in like the 23rd degree. No, it was. I think it was more that the other side of. But can also be residues of that. Moon is the people. So Uranus is going to conjoin the Moon of Netherlands. 1800 chart. And Saturn Neptune in the 10th. And Mars is in Capricorn, so that would trigger the 7th house. As for the 7th house of Netherlands, Pluto is pretty much wrapped with the 7th house. So that means it's the 8th house. The Uranus, I think, is not necessarily going to be a code orange of invasion, but there's going to be certain revolution in the jail and hospital system. And if people if they continue this no-touch torture and stuff like that, particularly on hospitalized people, but also outside, any form of targeted individuals is a form of incarceration and should be treated as the 12th house. Okay, for example, I became aware that I was targeted individual when Pluto ingressed to Aquarius. It's my 12th house. Okay, so it shows up as my 12th house transit for targeted individual. For a nation, it means that targeted individuals and the way that they are treated is 12th house for the country, which means susceptibility to invasion if they have targeted individuals. Okay? And I talked about evidence being that which is missing. There was a case of a person that helped people with their papers, okay, to write embassies and so on. And then 2017-18, he discovered certain loopholes in the litigation, and he was a good citizen. The Good Samaritan was speaking. The Good Samaritan was jailed, and by the way, he was not doing anything criminal, and he knew the law. That's all. His sin was that he knew the law, and then he was in prison. There was no touch torture done on him. Completely broken down. Got out of prison, still done on him. went to psychiatrist. Psychiatrist believed him but would not write diagnosis, and there was basically missing diagnosis for this man. They would say, they would write maybe a psychosis in the report. He got some outcaring, okay, welfare, got some housing and rights, but basically the fact that the psychiatrists were not willing to put their name on the line for writing full-blown psychiatric report shows that they were not wanting to risk themselves by participating in the war crime of calling targeted individual cuckoo, and they would lose not just their license but their head. It's a crime against humanity. And I think about all the psychiatrists that think that psychosis is a diagnosis. Or schizoaffective, okay, but whatever they call it. Effective is when the person is being effective in understanding that they're not schizo. That's when they become schizoaffective. And but you see how those missing things are basically the evidence that that person is not cuckoo. And no psychiatrist wants to put their name on saying that they're cuckoo, because the psychiatrist knows that they would treat that they would okay with exact so but that's the point of interference, okay? If those things are like proved and litigated and compensation and stopped, that then there won't be invasion. Otherwise it's code orange. For Netherlands can be code orange. Now one could say that the targeted individuals is a type of code orange to begin with, and I would not disagree. And it basically means that the civil wars from the outside permeate through the 12th house into Netherlands. And particularly the leadership, particularly the Royal Army, or the Army. It can be that the army rebels, or that the Royal Army rebels, because they were put through this incarceration techniques. Okay, military. Now here's the thing, for NATO, Aries is the 8th house, Gemini is the 10th house. And NATO is scheduled to have some sort of a military rebellion, but because of it's because of that hidden project, okay? Because those things done on soldiers, what can I say, Then of course the soldiers will rebel, because those things basically break soldiers down until they rebel. This is why when I addressed the Van Kessel case, I said, I don't know who this Van Kessel is or how he got the money to class litigate against Gates and Rutte there, okay? Okay, Gates and Rutte would not be allowed if there wouldn't be the Rabobank children death camp, okay? So that goes all the way to the 60s and way back. But that is a young lawyer, and yet he was already practicing lawyer during the time of the outbreak of the death row case. So there were some 28 years to tackle that one. Maybe he was gathering evidence. Like, I don't know what's the story, but in any case, one Saturday he was gunned down by the Secret Services, accused of being a terrorist against planning terror attack or planning terrorist activities against the NATO. And I said, because they tried to kidnap Rutte, then people were okay. Then people were distressed. But then but this person going through, okay, with those type of military tortures and so on, that could be breaking him down until he will do something. And um, that's the thing with those rituals, you know. Um, so for NATO, we see like a crisis of kind of like a civil war within the leading countries. Um, and just incarcerating people and torturing them is not going to prevent, let's just say. Okay, so for those that fear their lives, and not torturing people would be a good beginning to keep their lives in check. um, Now, for the Netherlands chart, Gemini is the 12th. And this is where any intelligence secret activity that targets individuals is creating a code orange. Okay, and mind you, code orange is for the natural resources. It's for and extinguishing all the trafficking codes that know too much and so on. Um, who's benefiting from a code orange? We'd have to ask Pluto in the 8th house. And they have Saturn in the 8th house. So it's some kind of a JP Morgan Chase type of thing. Cooperative banking or so. Aquarius is decentralized, global control. Okay. Maybe or maybe not type of global kind of investment banking. Um, and I don't necessarily mean WEF. I mean some sort of global banking that is decentralized. WEF is like the meetings of the visible people. The Klaus Schwab was not benefiting from being exposed over like sexual harassment and being demoted from head of WEF and stuff like that. Those people are all the visibles. It's the people underneath gloved hand that will get caught red-handed. Um, but there is the risk of a code orange. When? I don't know. Saturn Neptune could be one to do with the leadership. Uranus ingressing to Gemini for good could be another timestamp that could be. Pluto going over Saturn. Okay, this is in 3-4 years, even less. Pluto going over Saturn. That is not. We would gonna have to think. Yeah, for this chart we don't have the 248 years back, or do we? So it's 248 years from around this time backwards. Still going to, that would be the 1800 chart. So that would be the Pluto return of the 1800 chart. But it's interesting because they had Pluto in Pisces, I think. So it would be, it's not the Pluto return, but this is the Pluto going over Saturn before the Pluto return. Pluto going over Saturn is one. One challenging transit. It will expose any type of cloning program because it's eighth house, so it's also birthing. And any hidden, like this would be the time to not have any hidden cloning fetus. What Rudy calls clones of the dead, but not the clones of the dead, but those projects. Okay, Pluto going over Saturn is kind of like Swiss bank saying, here is the list of all the people that had a bank account in Swiss bank. Okay, but with cloning and with the procedure, Pluto set is detail. Every single detail, the cells, what cells are in the cloning project. Also the timings, the bonds, the depths around that, the dead, what dead people. You see, Pluto is in Aquarius already, and since Pluto is in Aquarius already, and you see the true Diverstigen exposes which person is clone of which person. This is exactly that transit. Okay, 8th house is the birthing, and Saturn, okay, is the time, the detail, and also the dead. Pluto is cell rejuvenation. So which person is a clone of which person? That and with the femicide that is happening in Netherlands, stealing of creative this or creative that, every single thing is going to now. This means that anybody that was not just the Dutch, okay, whoever was involved with that, that had anything to do with House of Orange, not just Netherlands, House of Orange, they're going down as well. Okay, that's what I'm saying. It's Now I don't like to just give rage prophecies. What do you think would be the point of interference? Not sacrificing more children. No, that's kitati pulit. I don't know how to translate that. Is where they put the children with developmental difficulties. Now people will say that this is a this is that. I'm neurodivergent. Okay, enough. Kitati pulit. What do you do when you're about to get karma for all the babies you sacrificed for endocrine? Sacrifice more? No, no, not sacrifice more babies. No.